Something is changing over the United States right now, not tomorrow, not next week, today. And if you've looked outside and thought the weather seemed relatively ordinary, that may be exactly what makes this situation so dangerous. Because while most people are focused on their daily routines, meteorologists are watching a pattern emerge that has all the ingredients for one of the most active stretches of severe weather we've seen in months. The atmosphere is transitioning from a quiet phase into something far more volatile, and the warning signs are beginning to line up across multiple regions at the same time. What makes this forecast stand out isn't just the possibility of severe storms, it's the sheer number of threats beginning to develop simultaneously. Powerful tornado-producing supercells in the northern plains, life-threatening flash flooding across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, a growing severe weather corridor stretching into the Midwest, and a dangerous heat surge preparing to bake parts of the West. It's as if the entire weather map has suddenly come alive. And when meteorologists start seeing multiple high-impact threats appearing at the same time, people should pay attention, because that's usually when the atmosphere becomes capable of producing headlines. The first major concern today lies across the northern plains and portions of southern Canada, where the environment is becoming alarmingly favorable for severe thunderstorms. Forecast models continue showing an explosive combination of instability, wind shear, and atmospheric rotation coming together during the afternoon and evening hours. These are the exact ingredients that can transform an ordinary thunderstorm into a dangerous supercell capable of producing giant hail, destructive winds, and tornadoes. And it's not just one ingredient that's present, it's all of them at the same time. Meteorologists often compare the atmosphere to a machine. When one component is missing, storms struggle to organize. But when every piece falls into place, the machine starts running at full power. That's what makes today's setup so concerning. The atmosphere appears fully capable of supporting storms that intensify rapidly and maintain their strength for hours. Some of these storms may begin as isolated supercells, which are often the most dangerous type. Before they merge into larger storm complexes, these individual storms can produce giant hailstones large enough to destroy roofs and shatter vehicle windows, and leave entire communities dealing with extensive damage. But the concern doesn't stop there. As evening approaches, many of these storms are expected to organize into a powerful line capable of producing widespread damaging winds. And those winds could arrive fast, very fast. The type of winds that snap tree limbs, bring down power lines, and leave thousands of homes without electricity. The kind of winds that can turn loose outdoor objects into dangerous projectiles. The kind of winds that make even strong thunderstorms feel more like a landfalling tropical system. But while tornadoes and severe thunderstorms may dominate the headlines, another threat is quietly growing farther south: water, and lots of it. Across portions of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, forecasters are becoming increasingly concerned about a flash flood situation that could rapidly escalate. Storm after storm continues tracking over the same locations, creating what meteorologists call training thunderstorms. Imagine train cars moving down the same railroad track over and over again. That's essentially what's happening in the atmosphere. One storm passes, then another, each one dumping more rain onto ground that has already absorbed all it can handle. The result can be devastating. Roadways disappear beneath rising water, creeks and streams leave their banks, vehicles become stranded, neighborhoods begin flooding, and conditions can deteriorate much faster than people expect. What makes flooding especially dangerous is how deceptive it can be. Unlike tornadoes, which often arrive with visible warning signs, floodwaters can quietly rise until escape routes disappear. Many flood victims never intended to take risks. They simply underestimated how quickly water can move and how powerful it becomes once it starts flowing. And unfortunately, the atmosphere is showing no signs of easing up. In fact, the broader pattern suggests exactly the opposite. Meteorologists are increasingly focused on a large-scale atmospheric shift that is beginning to lock itself into place across North America. This isn't just another weather system moving through. This is a pattern capable of controlling weather conditions across the continent for days at a time. Think of it like a traffic jam in the atmosphere. Weather systems that would normally keep moving become trapped. Heat gets stuck. Storms get stuck. Rain gets stuck. And when that happens, the impacts can multiply quickly. Under this setup, portions of the southern United States may continue dealing with repeated rounds of thunderstorms and flooding rains. While other regions find themselves trapped beneath persistent heat and sunshine, it's a weather pattern built around extremes. And once it locks into place, it can become remarkably stubborn. That brings us to the next major concern. The severe weather threat isn't ending after today, it's growing. Forecast confidence continues increasing that multiple rounds of severe weather may develop over the coming days, as fresh disturbances move into an increasingly unstable atmosphere. Each day appears capable of producing its own set of weather hazards, One day may focus on tornadoes, another on giant hail, another on damaging winds or flash flooding. The exact details will continue evolving, but the pattern itself is becoming difficult to ignore. The atmosphere appears determined to stay active. And when forecasters begin talking about multiple consecutive days of elevated severe weather potential, that's not something they do lightly. Every new forecast update seems to reinforce the same message: more storms, more opportunities for severe weather, more chances for flooding, more chances for disruption. Meanwhile, while storms dominate much of the central and eastern United States, a completely different problem is beginning to emerge along the West Coast: heat. Not ordinary summer warmth, potentially dangerous heat. A strengthening ridge of high pressure is expected to build over the western states, allowing temperatures to climb dramatically above seasonal averages. Communities that have enjoyed relatively mild conditions could soon find themselves dealing with temperatures that feel much more like the middle of summer. And heat has a way of sneaking up on people. There are no lightning strikes announcing its arrival, no tornado sirens, no dramatic radar images. Just day after day of increasing temperatures that place stress on people, power grids, infrastructure, and ecosystems. For many areas, the biggest challenge isn't the daytime heat, it's the nighttime heat. When temperatures fail to cool overnight, buildings retain warmth. Bodies struggle to recover, and heat-related illnesses become much more likely. This is particularly concerning in regions where air conditioning isn't as common. All of these seemingly unrelated weather events are connected by the same larger story. The atmosphere is reorganizing itself. The jet stream is becoming more amplified. The storm track is becoming more active, and the ingredients that fuel severe weather are becoming increasingly abundant. In many ways, this is exactly the type of pattern meteorologists watch most carefully. Not because every storm becomes a disaster, not because every forecast verifies perfectly, but because the potential exists. The potential for tornadoes, the potential for destructive hail, the potential for dangerous flooding, the potential for widespread wind damage, the potential for heat-related impacts. And when all of those possibilities begin appearing together, the atmosphere deserves respect. So as we move through today and into the days ahead, the message is simple. Stay informed, stay weather aware, pay attention to forecast updates, because this is no longer a quiet weather pattern. The atmosphere is waking up, the warning signs are multiplying, and what happens over the next several days could become one of the most significant weather stories we've seen in quite some time. The ingredients are there, the pattern is forming. And now, all eyes are on the sky. What worries forecasters even more is what happens after the first round of storms. In many weather events, a single storm system moves through, conditions stabilize, and the atmosphere gets a chance to recover. That's not what we're looking at here. Instead, the atmosphere appears to be entering a cycle where one disturbance follows another in rapid succession. Every time a storm system exits, another one is already waiting upstream, ready to tap into the same reservoir of heat, moisture, and instability. It's a conveyor belt pattern, and those are often the setups that produce the biggest weather stories. Because the impacts begin to stack on top of one another. Communities don't just deal with one day of severe weather. They deal with repeated threats, repeated warnings, and repeated disruptions to everyday life. The atmosphere itself is becoming increasingly efficient at producing dangerous weather. Moisture levels across large portions of the country are running well above normal. And that's a critical piece of the puzzle. Moisture is fuel. The more moisture available, the more energy storms have to work with. It allows thunderstorms to grow taller, become stronger, and produce heavier rainfall. It increases the potential for flooding and helps create the instability necessary for severe weather. Right now, that moisture is streaming northward almost uninterrupted, feeding directly into the regions where storm development is expected. It's like pouring gasoline into an engine that is already running hot. And then there's the jet stream. High above the surface, powerful winds are carving a path across the continent, creating an atmospheric highway for storm systems. The position of the jet stream is one of the biggest reasons meteorologists are paying such close attention to the days ahead. It isn't simply supporting thunderstorms, it's helping organize them. It provides the wind shear necessary for storms to rotate. It allows supercells to remain intact longer, and it increases the likelihood that isolated storms will eventually merge into larger complexes, capable of affecting multiple states at once. When the jet stream aligns with deep moisture and strong instability, severe weather becomes much easier to produce. One of the most dangerous aspects of the upcoming pattern is the timing of some of these threats. A significant portion of the severe weather may occur during the evening and overnight hours. That's when people are least prepared. During the day, threatening skies often serve as a warning. Dark clouds gather, thunder becomes audible, lightning flashes across the horizon. But after sunset, those visual clues disappear. Many people are asleep, phones may be silenced, warning notifications can be missed, and storms can arrive with frightening speed, Historically, nighttime severe weather events tend to produce higher impacts because people simply have less time to react. That's why having multiple ways to receive warnings is so important during active weather periods like this. The flood threat deserves special attention because it has the potential to affect far more people than tornadoes. Flash flooding is often underestimated because it doesn't always look dramatic at first. A road begins collecting water, a drainage ditch starts filling up, a creek rises a little faster than expected. But once floodwaters gain momentum, the situation can escalate incredibly quickly. Water doesn't need much depth to become dangerous. It doesn't need to be moving very fast to sweep away a vehicle. And once roads begin flooding, entire communities can become isolated. Emergency responders know that flooding is one of the deadliest weather hazards in the country. And the pattern setting up now is capable of producing exactly the type of rainfall events that create serious problems. As the week progresses, attention is expected to shift farther east. What begins in the plains may eventually expand into portions of the Midwest and Great Lakes. That means some of the most densely populated areas of the country could find themselves dealing with severe weather risks. Millions of people live within these corridors. Major highways, airports, rail systems, and power infrastructure all become increasingly vulnerable when large storm complexes begin moving through. A severe weather event that affects a sparsely populated area is one thing. A severe weather event moving through major metropolitan regions is something entirely different. The potential impacts multiply rapidly. And then there is the tornado question. Whenever meteorologists begin discussing tornado potential several days in advance, it's because they see ingredients that deserve attention. Tornado forecasting is incredibly difficult. No one can predict exactly where a tornado will form days ahead of time, but forecasters can identify environments that are favorable for tornado-producing storms. The atmosphere developing across portions of the country contains many of those ingredients. Strong wind shear, abundant moisture, significant instability, and upper-level dynamics capable of enhancing rotation. That doesn't guarantee a tornado outbreak, but it does mean that any storm that becomes established could have the ability to rotate and produce dangerous weather. What makes these setups especially challenging is how quickly storms can intensify. A storm may appear relatively harmless when it first develops. Within an hour, it can become severe. Shortly after that, it can be producing giant hail or a tornado. The atmosphere doesn't always evolve gradually. Sometimes it flips a switch. That's why experienced meteorologists spend so much time emphasizing preparedness before storms develop rather than after warnings are issued. Once the atmosphere starts producing severe weather, events often move too quickly for last-minute planning. At the same time, the western United States is preparing for a very different kind of challenge. While some regions deal with storms, others will be dealing with building heat. The contrast is striking. One side of the country is watching the sky for rotating thunderstorms, while the other is watching thermometers climb steadily upward. This is another hallmark of a highly amplified weather pattern. Extremes begin appearing simultaneously. The atmosphere isn't distributing weather evenly, it's concentrating it. Storms become stormier, heat becomes hotter, rain becomes heavier. And the overall pattern becomes more difficult to break. The broader concern is that these patterns can become self-reinforcing. Heavy rain keeps soil saturated, making future flooding more likely. Repeated storms weaken trees and infrastructure, increasing vulnerability to subsequent events. Heat builds day after day beneath stagnant high-pressure systems. Rivers remain elevated. Reservoirs fluctuate. Emergency managers begin monitoring multiple hazards at once. This is why meteorologists often focus as much on the pattern as they do on individual storms. The pattern tells the larger story, and right now that story is becoming increasingly active. By the time this pattern finally begins to weaken, many areas could have experienced multiple rounds of impactful weather. Some communities may deal with flooding, others may face severe thunderstorms, some may see damaging winds, others could be coping with unusual heat. The exact impacts will vary from place to place, but the common theme remains the same. The atmosphere is becoming far more energetic than it has been in recent weeks. The quiet stretch is ending, and a much more active chapter appears ready to begin. So tonight, while many people are focused on their normal routines, meteorologists will be watching the data. They'll be monitoring radar trends, satellite imagery, atmospheric soundings, and forecast models, because every new piece of information is helping answer the same question. Just how active is this pattern about to become? And based on everything we're seeing right now, the answer may be bigger than many people realize. The atmosphere has all the ingredients. The pattern is locking into place. The fuel is already there. Now it's simply a matter of timing. And if the forecast trends continue, the coming days could deliver a relentless sequence of storms, flooding, heat, and severe weather that keeps much of the country on edge. This is no longer just another forecast. It's a developing weather story, and it's only beginning.